Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Mukesh English, and this is your favorite YouTuber Mukesh Soni. Friends, in this video I'm going to summarize a very interesting poem, Refugee Blues by W.H.Auden. Refugee means a person who has been instructed or who has been forced to leave the country during the war or the persecution or the natural disaster. Blues here refers to a kind of a song of sadness or mourning. So the poem Refugee Blues is composed by the famous British American poet W.H. Auden, and this poem is composed during the World War II. So let us see the introduction of this poem. Refugee Blues is a poem written by W.H. Auden. The poem is about Jewish refugees who were escaping from Nazi persecution in 1930s. The poem describes the difficulty of Jewish people who were forced to leave or to flee from their house, from their homes during the World War II. Most of the countries had a policy of most of the countries they had a policy of not accepting those refugees. So the poem's speaker is a refugee, the poet is a refugee here, the speaker is a refugee who seems to be saying all the advantages in the life of people who are not Jewish. The people who are not Jewish, they have all the advantages of life. And he repeats one statement at the end of every stanza, which shows that Jews are not able to do the same, or they do not have the advantage that the others are having. So this poem was written in 1939, and it reflects the themes of displacement, discrimination, and hopelessness, right? So the poem Refugees Blues from a Jewish person, the speaker is a Jewish, the speaker is a refugee, and let's listen to his plight, his hopelessness. So the poem is composed in 12 stanzas. Stanza number 1, the poet says, say this city has 10 million souls. Some are living in mansions, some are living in holes. Yet, there's no place for us, my dear. Yet, there's no place for us. So the speaker talks about a big city where 10 million people can live, or where the 10 million people are living. But some people are rich and they are living in the big houses, big mansions, big beautiful houses, and the others are very poor. They are living in the bad conditions. Holes here refers to refer to the slums or the underground shelters. Even though there are so many houses and people, but these refugees, they have no houses to stay, they have no place to stay, they have nowhere to stay. So the phrase "no place for us" repeats two times, which shows the refugees' sadness and frustration. Now, moving ahead in the stanza number 2, the poet continues, once we had a country, we thought it fair. Look in the atlas. Look in the atlas, you'll find it there. We cannot go there now, my dear. We cannot go there now. The speaker remembers the old country, which once they thought it was their country, it was good country, it was fair and just. But today, even though their country still exists on a map on the atlas, but they cannot return because they are not safe. They are no longer safer. They are no longer safe over there. They have lost their homes, their rights, their identity, and the repetition, we cannot go there now, which shows, emphasizes those refugees' deep sorrow. In the stanza number 3, the poet says, in the village churchyard there grows an old yew. Every spring it blossoms anew. Old passports cannot do that, my dear. Old passports cannot do that. So the yew tree grows in an old country churchyard in the cemetery. Every spring, the tree grows new leaves and new flowers. That means there's a freshness. But the old passports do not renew themselves like the trees. If a refugee's passport expires, they cannot travel or they cannot get any of the help. So this comparison shows that refugees are stuck while the nature continues to move forward. Let me give you some more explanation about this important stanza. So in this stanza, the poet shows the contrast between nature and the refugees, as there's always a new hope for the natural life. It renews, but the refugees passport cannot be renewed. This is a metaphor that captures new life, new opportunity, new progression. So this line indicates the helplessness of the refugees to go back to a safe place because they could not get their passport renewed. Stanza number 4, the poet further says, the consul banged the table and said, if you have got no passport, you are officially dead. But we are still alive. My dear, we are still alive. The consul, the government officer, is supposed to help, but instead he gets angry. He bangs the table. He tells them if they do not have a passport, it is very similar to that they do not exist. The speaker reminds his loved one who is along with him, even though they have no passport, but still they are alive. But those officials, they consider them as the dead bodies, as the dead one. So this shows how governments treat refugees as if they are not human, but the refugees know that they are still people, they are still people with the hopes and the feelings. So let me give you some more explanation here. In the anger, the consul banged the table and he said that if the refugee was not having passport, then officially the refugee is dead. But the refugee and his companion, they are alive. Even people in the authority, they refuse to help and they state that they didn't really care about the refugees. So it also depicts that it describes that without passports, they are simply nobody. If they don't have passport, they are nobody in this world. They are just alive. But the poet says that they are dead. But the poet says that we are still alive because we still have the hopes, we are still optimistic. Moving ahead, stanza number 5, the poet says, went to a committee. They offered me chair, asked me politely to return next year. But where shall we go today, my dear? But where shall we go today? The refugee now from government official from council, they have gone to a committee. Committee means a group of officials, those who are meant to help assist those refugees, and they are gone to this committee for help. And the committee people are very polite. They allowed him to sit in a chair, but they do nothing useful. How? Instead, they tell him to come back next year, and they have delayed the real help. They told very politely, they told, no, we can't help you now. You need to come next year. But the refugee needs a place to go today, not in the future. The refugee is not thinking for the future. The refugee is thinking to get a settlement, to get a house, to get a shelter today, not for the future. That's why he says, where shall we go today, my dear? But where shall we go today? So the question, where shall we go today, shows their desperation. They have no options. They are absolutely homeless. Now, moving ahead, stanza number 6. The poet further says, came to a public meeting. Now, from officials, they have come to a public meeting, came to a public meeting. The speaker got up and said, if we let them in, they will steal our daily bread. He was talking of you and me, my dear. He was talking of you and me. The refugee goes to public meeting where people are discussing whether to help refugees or not. One person among this meeting, one person stands up and he says, refugees should not be allowed in because they will take away our jobs and food. So their own people today, their own people are not accepting, their own people are not helping them. And they think that if the refugees are allowed to settle here, they will take away the existing people's job and food. The phrase steal our daily bread shows that people fear the refugees will make life harder for the locals. The speaker realizes that they are talking about him and his loved one, rejecting them, treating them like a problem rather than human beings. So, this stanza emphasizes that people are unwilling to help the refugees and they felt threatened by them. People are afraid of those couple. They thought that they would steal their bread, their livelihood. The impersonal language. What kind of person has been used here? Language. The impersonal language, them, also captures, quote unquote, them, also captures the hostility towards the refugees, the hatred feelings towards the refugees by using the word them. Now we are moving to the stanza number 7. The speaker, the poet further says, thought, I heard the thunder rumbling in the sky. It was Hilda over Europe, saying they must die. Oh, we were in his mind, my dear. Oh, we were in his mind. The speaker hears thunder, which usually means a kind of storm is coming. So, what kind of storm the speaker is talking about? But the real storm is here, Hitler's rise to power and his decision to kill the Jewish people. What kind of thunder? Hitler is going to give an order to all the soldiers to kill the Jewish people. So this thunder is coming up. He's expecting, he's assuming, he's thinking this kind of thunder is coming. The phrase "they must die" refers to Hitler's plan to destroy the Jews in the Holocaust. The speaker realizes that he and his loved one are a part of this nightmare. They are being hunted. They will be killed due to the order of Hitler. Now, stanza number 8. The speaker says, saw I saw a poodle in a jacket fastened with a pin, saw a door open and a cat let in, but they were not German Jews, my dear, but they were not German Jews. Poodle means a dog which is wrapped up with a good clothes, right? So there's a very contrasting stanza here. The speaker sees a poodle, a dog who is wearing jacket, which shows that the dog is well cared. Look at here how the animals are more luckier than these refugees. He also sees a cat being let inside in a house safely. That means the cat has a shelter. But then he bitterly says, but they were not German Jews. Poodle, the cat, they are not German Jews. That's why they are safe. We are German Jews. That's why we are not safe here. We don't have space here to sit to take a shelter. This means even animals are treated better than Jewish refugees, right? So the poet highlights a contrast between the condition of the couple, condition of the poet and his beloved or his the loved one, and the animals. The cats were allowed to enter anywhere they wanted, but the Jews were not allowed. So the condition of the refugees was worse than animals. The animals are luckier than those refugees here. So that's a contrast. Moving to stanza number 9, the poet says, went down the harbor and stood upon the quay or the quay, saw the fish swimming as if they were free. I'm sorry. Went down the harbor and stood upon the quay and saw the fish swimming as if they were free, only 10 feet away, my dear, only 10 feet away. So here the speaker is standing at the harbor at the port and he's watching the fish swimming freely in the water and they are just 10 feet away. The fish do not need passports. The fish do not need permission so that they can go anywhere, but the refugee is so close to freedom, just 10 feet away, yet he cannot reach. Where's the freedom? Those fish who are swimming in the fish who are swimming, and the distance is here hardly 10 feet. So the fish is lucky, but the refugees are not lucky. They cannot reach. This shows how trapped and hopeless he feels here. So the refugee here, he went down the harbor and he saw the fish swimming, enjoying the freedom. They were hardly 10 feet away from the refugee, but the refugee is not free as the fish are free. Stanza number 10. The poet further says, walked through a wood, saw the birds in the trees. They had no politicians and sang at the ease. They were not the human race, my dear. They weren't the human race. Now, the speaker sees the birds flying and singing very happily in the trees. The speaker goes through the jungle, through the woods, and he observes the birds flying happily, singing happily in the trees. Because why? Because the birds, the fish, they do not need passports. They don't need any governments to tell them where to live. The final line, they were not they were not the human race, suggests that humans who are supposed to be intelligent are actually more cruel than animals. So they were not the human race, means it's better. It's better those birds are not the humans, because the humans are more cruelsome than animals, because the humans are supposed to be intelligent, but actually they are cruel than animals. So here in this stanza, we have seen here when the poet walks through the wood, he notices how the birds are singing freely in the trees, but because the politicians have no control over their life, the politicians could not make the life of the birds hell, so their condition was far better than the conditions of human beings, the conditions of these refugees. So there's a comparison here. Now, second last stanza, the poet further says, dreamed I saw a building with 1,000 floors, 1,000 windows, and 1,000 doors. Not one of them was ours, my dear. Not one of them was ours. Excuse me. The poet further says the speaker dreams of a massive building with many floors, many windows, many doors. This symbolizes all the places where people live. He says that there are many floors, there are many houses which have so many windows, so many doors. But, excuse me, but we refugees do not have space. We refugees do not have windows. We do not have doors here. But whereas the other people have the space, none of the doors belong to the refugees. They have no place in the world. That's what the poet would like to convey here. The last stanza, the poet says here, stood on a great plain in the falling snow, 10,000 soldiers marched to and fro, looking for me, looking for you and me, my dear, looking for you and me. Very sad, very disappointed tone here. Stood on a great plain in the falling snow, 10,000 soldiers marched to and fro, looking for you and me, my dear, looking for you and me. The speaker and his beloved are the one who are standing in the snow that shows coldness, suffering, and death. Thousands of soldiers are marching. They are looking for the refugees to capture or kill, because that's the order of Hitler, to kill all the refugees, right? The repetition, looking for you and me, it creates a kind of fear, a hopelessness. Now, the poet and his beloved one, the close one. They are afraid now. They think they are going to be killed by those soldiers, by those numberless soldiers. It suggests that they have nowhere left to hide and their tragic fate is near. It suggests that now they cannot hide themselves because they don't have place to take shelter. There are many mansions are there. There are many big buildings are there which have windows and doors. There are many slums are there, but they do not have space to hide themselves from those thousand soldiers who are about to kill them. So this stanza, this concluding stanza, not only gives an image of coldness and death, but also of survival in challenging situations. The soldiers were not looking for them particularly, but they were looking for German Jews. Here, the speaker would like to highlight the tragedy and the fear of the personal experience as well as the collective experience. Here, the poet has used a figure of speech, hyperbole, to show the immense number of soldiers after them and how they are outnumbered for two persons, thousand soldiers. So this is a hyperbole here. So friends, in this manner, we can say here this poem gives a pretty accurate description of the situation of Jews under Hitler's rule. It is to show the people the plight of their fellow humans, and just because they were Jews, they were denied basic rights. So, an indirect appeal to show the compassion for humanity, irrespective of the community, is the main theme of this poem. The poet W.H.Auden tries to gain sympathy and compassion for the Jews. He blames the soldiers for their brutality and inhumanity as they killed the innocent people. He also strongly suggests that the countries that turn the speaker away share a good deal of the blame and the responsibility. They're also responsible. They had the power to save the speaker, but they failed to do so. He shows the human nature of Jews and how they wish to be the free and safe like other human beings. So I have brought few important questions along with the summary. And the very question number one, where did the narrator and his companion want to go? Why were they unable to do so? Answer, the narrator and his companion were forced to flee persecution and the violence in Nazi Germany. They were terrified of returning to Germany, but also were unable to find a safe place in the countries like England or US because they kept tight quotas on the number of Jewish immigrants admitted each year. Question number two, why did the council bang the table? Why was he angry? The speaker tried to seek asylum in an unnamed country in Europe, but that country frustratingly turned the speaker away. When the council asked for the passports, the narrator and his companion replied that their passports had expired. The council became angry and shouted that if they had no passports, they were officially dead. Third question, what is the refugee offered by the committee and what did they ask for? What was his reaction? When the narrator went to the committee to get the passports renewed, they offered him a chair to sit and asked him to come back next year. The narrator also disheartened and shocked because he did not know where to go. Question number four. What did the narrator see at the harbor? What did the refugees see in the woods? The narrator saw the fish swimming at the harbor as if they were free. He also saw the birds singing freely in the woods. They were all having better lives than he and his companion, a couple of Jews. There were no constraints in the politicians to bind them. This shows the fallen state of the humans. The freedom that the fish and the birds enjoyed was not given to the Jews. What did the refugee see in his dream? The refugee saw a huge building with thousands of rooms in his dream, but none had the names written over it. This shows that there was no place for the refugee to reside. Who was looking for the refugee? The soldiers who were deployed to kill the Jews were looking for the refugee. What is the setting of the poem? History of German Jew, rule of Hitler, denied refugees in other countries and no safe place to live, and depressing state. So hope these questions will also help you to cover the summary in direct manner. So friends, this is how I have tried to summarize the very important poem, the Refugee Blues by Refugees Blue by W.H.Auden, and also I have given 7 or 8 questions which will help you to revise the whole summary. Thank you so much for watching this video. And this poem is also in the syllabus of second semester BCom General English under Bangalore University SEP syllabus. Any questions, please do reach me at mukeshenglish@gmail.com. Like the video, write in the comment box, and also don't forget to subscribe the channel. You'll be having question answers videos very soon, model question paper solutions also very soon, and many more videos to appear. Thank you once again. Stay in tune with Mukesh English.